My story isn't the typical rise from the ashes tale you might expect. No, it's more complicated than that. A tapestry woven with betrayal, neglect, and a quiet, relentless pursuit of success. Looking back, I often wonder how I endured the emotional coldness of my parents, the blatant favoritism toward my siblings, and the lonely journey to build a life they never thought I could have. But perhaps, I should start at the beginning. I grew up in a modest home, in a suburban town. My parents, Mark and Linda, were hard-working people. My father owned a small business, a struggling hardware store, while my mother worked part-time as a receptionist. From the outside, we seemed like an average family. But inside our house, the dynamics were far from equal. I was the middle child, sandwiched between my older brother, Daniel, and my younger sister, Lily. Daniel was the golden boy, athletic, charming, and always the center of attention. Lily, on the other hand, was the perfect daughter, soft-spoken, obedient, and effortlessly brilliant in academics. And then there was me, Emily, the invisible one, the one who never seemed to measure up. I remember the day it all started to become clear. I was 10 years old when Daniel received a brand new bicycle for his birthday. It wasn't just any bike. It was the top-of-the-line model he'd been eyeing for months. The smile on his face as he rode it around the neighborhood was contagious. But my birthday, which came 2 months later, was a different story. I got a second-hand book and a half-hearted happy birthday from my parents. It stung, but I convinced myself that I was imagining things. Years passed, and the favoritism only grew more apparent. Daniel received driving lessons and a car when he turned 16. Lily was enrolled in expensive extracurricular activities. Meanwhile, I worked part-time jobs to buy my own school supplies. When I asked for help, my father would scoff, saying, "You need to learn to fend for yourself, Emily. Life isn't fair." It wasn't just the material things. My parents never came to my school events, never celebrated my achievements, and never showed interest in my life. But for Daniel and Lily, they were always front and center, cheering them on, beaming with pride. I tried to make peace with it, telling myself that I didn't need their approval, but deep down, it hurt. I felt like an outsider in my own family. After high school, Daniel went off to an Ivy League college, fully funded by my parents. Lily followed suit a few years later, attending a prestigious university with their financial support. When it was my turn to apply to colleges, my parents sat me down and said, "We can't afford to help you, Emily. You'll have to take out loans or get a job." I was shattered. I knew they had the money. I'd seen the savings accounts they used to pay for Daniel and Lily's education. But for me, nothing. Determined to prove them wrong, I enrolled in a local community college and worked 2 jobs to pay for my tuition. I spent my nights studying and my days working shifts at a coffee shop and a bookstore. It wasn't glamorous, but it was mine. Every penny I earned went toward my education and living expenses, and slowly, I started to build a life for myself. During this time, I discovered my passion for coding. I spent hours teaching myself programming languages, building small projects, and honing my skills. By the time I graduated, I had a portfolio that rivaled those of students from top universities. But even as I built my own success, my parents remained distant. They never asked about my career, never congratulated me on my achievements. It was as if they didn't care. After years of hard work, I landed a job at a tech company. The salary was more than I ever dreamed of. I moved into a comfortable apartment, bought myself a car, and finally felt like I was making it on my own. I should have been happy, but there was always a lingering sadness, the absence of my family's support. One day, I received a message from Daniel. He was struggling financially after a series of bad investments and needed help. "I know you've done well for yourself," he said. "Could you lend me some money?" I was taken aback. This was the same brother who had everything handed to him, while I scraped by with nothing. Part of me wanted to say no, but I couldn't bring myself to do it. I agreed to help him, but on one condition, that he pay me back within a year. A few months later, Lily reached out, asking for help with her mortgage. Again, I agreed, setting the same condition. But as time passed, it became clear that neither of them intended to pay me back. They treated my generosity as a given, something they were entitled to. It was infuriating. Then came the final blow. I discovered that my parents had co-signed loans for Daniel and Lily, despite telling me they couldn't afford to help me. They'd been financially supporting them all along, even as they watched me struggle. Furious, I decided it was time to confront my family. I invited them over to my apartment, determined to get answers. When they arrived, I didn't hold back. "Why did you help Daniel and Lily, but not me?" I asked, my voice shaking with emotion. My father sighed, avoiding my gaze. "We did what we thought was best. Best for who? I snapped. Certainly not for me. I've built everything I have on my own, while you've supported them every step of the way. Why? My mother finally spoke. We knew you'd be fine, Emily. You've always been independent. We didn't think you needed us. I couldn't believe what I was hearing. So, you punished me for being self-sufficient? That's your excuse? The room fell silent. My parents looked uncomfortable, while Daniel and Lily avoided my gaze. I'm done, I said quietly. I've spent my entire life trying to earn your approval, but I see now that I don't need it. I'm proud of what I've accomplished, and I did it without you. As they left, I felt a weight lift off my shoulders. For the first time, I felt free. In the months that followed, I focused on myself. I continued to grow my career, invest wisely, and build a life I loved. My relationship with my family remained strained, but I'd made peace with it. One day, I received a letter from my parents. They apologized for their behavior and expressed regret for how they'd treated me. It wasn't a perfect apology, but it was a start. I decided to meet them halfway. We're not a perfect family, but we're trying. And that's enough for me, because in the end, my success isn't defined by their approval. It's defined by my resilience, my hard work, and my ability to rise above the betrayal.